For those who are not currently aware of our existence, we represent the organization known as the SCP Foundation. Our previous mission centered around the containment and study of anomalous objects, entities, and other assorted phenomena. This mission was the focus of our organization for more than 100 years. Due to circumstances outside of our control, this directive has now changed. Our new mission will be the extermination of the human race. There will be no further communication. We are not one for halfway measures, not the SCP Foundation. In fact, I myself personally requested the destruction of billions of anomalous pillows back in 2013. How you doing, folks? Been a minute. Let me introduce myself in this year 2020 week 6 episode of SCP Cafe. My name is Blue Soul, SCP Wiki moderator, chat administrator, subreddit moderator once again, author, loving husband, dog petter, clone aficionado, and Tottenham Hotspur supporter. Whew, man. I took a nap. I've been gone a little bit, huh? I took about 8 weeks. It was, I think, very necessary. I had a lot of time to think about a lot of stuff to do with the show and with my work with the Foundation in general. I don't have a real clear agenda for today. I'm just going to talk for a little bit about last year, past, present, and future. I've got some ideas now and wanted to share them with you. So first of all, a huge thank you to all of the listeners for getting me over a pretty significant milestone over on Spotify. We hit 50,000 plays over the last week, and that's a really cool number to me. So thank you guys there. I've been surprised at how much play the last episode was still getting. A lot of people still finding the show and still checking it out. So that was really cool to see. And to see us hit that number 50,000 was really awesome. So I had a bit of a one-way conversation in the SCP Cafe chat a little over a week ago, kind of laying out what's been on my mind while I've been taking this sort of intentional break from the show. And I had the opportunity to sort of come to some conclusions. A lot of it has to do with I sort of boxed myself in to a particular format, to the recap format. And the trouble with that is you do something long enough without any real deviation and there's no end in sight, it starts to feel a little like almost suffocating, like you're going to be stuck doing this. And nobody asked me to do it exactly that way till the end of time. It was entirely self-inflicted. So I don't think I'm going to be doing a ton of stuff in that recap format. I'm going to be taking this year to explore a lot of new things. One thing I'm definitely going to be doing is starting to bring on some guests. Hopefully I can impress you guys with who I can convince to be on the show and, share their thoughts on any number of things. But when you are used to doing things in a certain way and you start to lose the joy that comes with the creation, it starts to feel like work. And that's not a great place to be for something that is, it's always been sort of a hobbyist project. When things really feel like work, things get super hard for everybody involved. You can look at any number of, staff issues over time where, things are really serious. Things are, there is no fun to be found, and the attrition starts to really get bad when that happens for any significant stretch because, well, we're not really getting paid at all. So we're definitely not getting paid enough to deal with it on a long-term basis. So what I'm wanting to do is find new formats that, that bring that spark that I find fun and fresh and that you guys really enjoy. And I don't think it's going to be really possible without some feedback from you guys on what's working, what's not, because that's part of sort of the tuning of the show happens as you get that feedback and you're like, okay, so I'm getting consistently that people want to hear more in this style that I just did, or that they weren't a big fan of this other thing. And then I can sort of sculpt that and make something new. So I am, I may regret this because I'm committing to it on the air. I am going to be opening up the SCP Cafe Discord. This is something that's actually been low-key open for a while, but I have not shared that link to anybody. I'm going to need some help administering it. And I know AIS Mallard has, graciously offered his knowledge on how to work with that system in the past. So I may be leaning on some people to get that launched. I'll have a link to that Discord posted here within the next day or two on scp.cafe. If you have placed an order on the SCP Cafe store, by the time you hear this recording, you will have either a ship notice or a status update for one of these, which was a back-ordered item. Otherwise, orders are going to be back up and running as usual. I don't have the numbers yet. I am going to soon go over how 2019 did as far as contributions made to Project Foundation and artist profit sharing. Here's some numbers I can share with you right now, though. $153,624 and $27,116. Those are the numbers raised for SCP Russia's legal funds and Dr. Gears' medical fundraiser, respectively. The latter is closing in on 1,000 donors, and the former, the legal funds, is sitting at over 7,100 donors. $153,000. So what do we say here beyond a very sincere thank you to Markiplier? We had hit our goal, to be clear, before his video landed and became the #1 trending video in YouTube's gaming category. We were a good $10,000 over, actually. We were at $60K, but in the intervening time, in the last couple of weeks, we have seen an increase of almost another $100,000 into the pot. So, of course, it's very easy to, point at Mark, and you would be right. Of course, this signal boost is everything, not to mention, a sizable donation by him, which we, truly do appreciate. But it's also, I want to make sure that the internet outreach team gets their, proper credit here, because they've done an awesome job getting the message out on all of the platforms and raising that awareness. And I think if that awareness hadn't been so efficiently raised by IO, then it's possible we wouldn't have had, that secondary signal boost by Markiplier at all. So, this is it's always a team effort. Nobody goes and raises, $150,000 by themselves. But we can certainly thank everybody involved. So, the last I heard about this, I don't think I'm going to reveal anything that isn't already fairly common knowledge. It's already stuff that's posted on the GoFundMe. We're basically waiting on some stuff from the Russian legal system. We had some affidavits that had to get sent, and they have been sent. We are really, really fortunate to have people at the very core of this writing project that are on the same page as us and also agree, on what Creative Commons means and what, this attempted trademark case is, with them on our side, it makes it so much more possible that we can actually win this thing. So, meanwhile, on the Dr. Gears medical fundraiser, for those not aware, he had a diagnosis, a stage 2 tumor on one of his kidneys, and we're looking at having to have that sucker removed. Had an opportunity to opt into some experimental procedure, but decided against it. Just, too much time would be taken to go that route. So he actually posted an update today. Things not going super well at the Gears house right now. His mother-in-law just had a stroke a few days ago, and it's one of those when it rains it pours situations. So hoping for the very best for him. I know he was extremely fortunate to get this diagnosis when he did. My understanding is that it is the sort of thing that doesn't necessarily manifest in symptoms until it's too late. So the symptoms manifested at a point in time where it is still something that can be dealt with. So, so grateful to know that, and that, the funds have been raised to help him and his family get through this time. Now, I have a few more numbers to throw out there. These are pretty cool numbers. 17 wikis, 215 forums, 30,717 files, 45,925 users, 57,814 pages, 154,800 threads, 807,438 page revisions, 1,058,049 posts, and 4,853,846 votes currently being backed up by the SCUTTLE backup platform. So this is something that I really kicked into high gear starting in October, and have been slowly, incrementally improving ever since. The platform at this point does support all of the international wikis and the Wanderer's Library. The only exception currently is the Japanese branch, who I'm just waiting on them to accept my application. And over the past few months, worked out all the bugs, worked out all the weird edge cases, all the language differences, got it to the point where it will reliably back up every page, every forum post, all the vote data, every user, just a ton of stuff. And it's been really, really cool to see it come together. I've been able to use a bunch of new tools at Amazon Web Services, which I recently got, my new top level certification in. So this is some really, really good training for if and when we move off to our own platform. We're going to use a lot of this same technology from an infrastructure perspective to power it. Just, all the reason in the world to do it. And I can fully credit SCUTTLE with landing my new job. I got an AWS engineer position, and it is entirely according to them because of the work that I've done, the practical background that I've got in building this architecture. So going forward, I mentioned this in the cafe chat, and I mentioned this in a letter to my patrons. Patreon money, Patreon pledges, will be directly supporting the SCUTTLE platform. Your patronage will directly benefit the backup endeavors that I am undertaking. This is currently the most complete backup on the planet of wiki.wikis. If you aren't aware of what the actual backup within wiki.dot looks like, because you have to be an admin to run one, I did one, and what it'll do is it'll say, you go to the backup page and it's like, well, you don't ever really have to do this, but if you want, go ahead and click the backup button and give us a few minutes. So you do, and after a little time, it says, okay, here you go. Here's a zip file. Like, okay, great. So what's in the zip file? Well, you have a text file, one for every page on your wiki, and you have all of the files that were uploaded to the wiki. And that's it. Notable exclusions here. You have no metadata about any of the pages. You don't know who uploaded it. You don't know when they uploaded it. You don't know what it was rated at. You don't know what comments were attached to it. You don't know who voted on it. You don't know how they voted on it. You don't know which files go to which page. You have no forum history. You have no revision history for the pages. It is really, really bare bones as a backup goes. Could you get by and build something new with that backup set? Theoretically, you're going to run into issues if you have multiple files with the same name. It's really not a good system. So seeing that, we knew that was the state of things back in like 2012, and there have been backup efforts going on in some form or fashion since then. The most complete backups back in the day were done with browser automation, literally a thing that would launch a Chrome window or a Firefox window and go click through things as though it was a user on the wiki and capturing what it saw. And in fact, I did a version of that up until October. But it's so picky, and it's so prone to things not doing real well in the network, causing all sorts of goofy errors that you have to account for. So I figured out some ways to get the data directly without having to go through all the browser stuff, and slowly but surely I've, figured out just about all of it. Really, the only thing I am missing, to my knowledge, is whether or not a page is locked. And that can be gotten, but it requires some extra permission. And it's, if this is what we're left with that we can't get without a bunch of extra work, this is a great starting point. So, yeah, if you do pledge to the Patreon, and that is patreon.com/SCP Cafe, you will see a new tier there. If you're not super interested in the podcast but do want to support my efforts to back up the site, there's a Friend of SCUTTLE tier with it's only a $1 minimum pledge. I don't have any additional tiers because right now I don't have anything to really offer you there aside from my sincere thanks for donating to that cause, because it will 100% of that money is going into backing up backing up everything, and what little additional costs I have to sort of keep the business that it all sort of falls under operational. That's basically like a PO box rental. So everything else is going into paying the AWS bill, and I'm going to be doing some occasional updates on the costs involved. I'm going to be updating the tiers, and I'm sorry, not the tiers, but the goals rather, on Patreon from time to time as numbers shift and as certain things become more obvious that they're needed or are really nice to have versus what I've got right now. But I have totally redone the goals at this point. So if you do go to patreon.com/SCP Cafe, you will see all of the plans for SCUTTLE as it continues to grow. I've already undertaken the first of the new sort of growth tiers, and that is setting up a new database server for SCUTTLE. So it's no longer one server that has the database and the website on one box. They're two different machines now, and that actually made a huge difference in the job to go get all of the vote data for all of the pages on all of the wikis. That was a 4.5 hour job. Now it's taking about an hour and 40 minutes. So already seeing huge dividends from the funding to make this go by just a little bit faster. And as we sort of pivot and I make this publicly available where people can query the SCUTTLE API for data that they need, say you're building a bot, say you want to design something to work with data offline, whatever. This is going to be, a key-driven API, but easier to use, I think, than Wikidot's API. And there's a few things that won't even require a key that I don't think people can really abuse terribly. So I will have lots and lots of news along those lines as things mature. I plan on doing sort of a SCUTTLE cast about once a month and just talk numbers and talk costs and talk, roadmap. So SCUTTLE has been going for several years in some form or fashion, and this most recent iteration of it is, technically it's looking really solid, and you'll actually be able to see SCUTTLE work in near real time in the SCP Cafe Discord. There's a SCUTTLE feed channel where I've got some integration there, so you can kind of see what's going on. New pages are added within 60 seconds of being posted, and deletions and moves are also detected in about that span of time. Votes are recorded 3 times a day. We've got a lot of other things that happen on a daily basis, sort of rotating throughout the day to keep the load on Wikidot side to a reasonable threshold, because it's more I'm more worried about Wikidot falling over than I am my own servers. So it's something that I have to be mindful for. I can't just turn the fire hose on full blast and get it. I have to run things a little bit slower, well, a lot slower than they could, to make sure I'm not a nuisance to them. But it's working. I'm thrilled. And the most recent database dump is available. You can ask in the SCP Cafe chat, or if you find a Discord link by the time you get this, I will have that posted somewhere in there as well. Now, since I so cruelly left you all, we've had a few things happen on the wiki. The big one would be the SCP 5000 contest, of which I have not read a single entry. I'm a little backlogged. I'll get there. I'm going to be sort of picking that up and making time for it throughout the week. A lot of people know when I was doing this recap format, I would basically not read at all until Thursday to do the pregame thread. So I think that was part of my problem, was that I was just I was subjecting myself to basically 2 full days of just being in that mindset, being in that in that tunnel vision of, you got to do all this stuff for the show, you got to do all of it. I feel like spreading that out on a smoother basis will help me there. Another thing I mentioned in the letter to patrons in the cafe chat is that going forward, I have thought about who I'm really doing this for, and this is this sounds a little more awkward than I really gave it credit for, talking to my community on the chat, because pretty much everybody there is a writer, is an author on the wiki already. So what I want out of this is to boost their visibility. I want this to be somewhere where the writers get the opportunity to have their works showcased in as positive an environment as I can really muster. That's not to say that I can't find fault in a work, or that, I won't offer criticism when I think it is warranted. But what I mean is that the focus of the production is the elevation of the writers, even if that comes at the expense of a product that is slightly more appealing to a casual listener. So the net result of that is that I want to focus, I want to expand the focus beyond the main list. I want to look at all of the other facets of the wiki. There are more non-SCP articles on the wiki than there are SCPs. The tales, the GOI formats, all of the other pieces and parts that build the universe and get very little attention. I'll tell you, if you see somebody writing tales, they're generally not doing it for the voting. They're not doing it to see their net upvotes go up, because tales, versus the main list, it's a lot lower viz. And that is something I have some control over. I can look at everything and call out good works when I see them. So that is something I want to try and keep in the back of my head as I think about plans for Cafe and for new show formats. Use that sort of as the barometer, as the yardstick for what am I going to do. Will it boost? Will it elevate the writers? Will it give them the most opportunity to shine out of the other options? So another thing I thought of along those lines is, and I mentioned I want to bring some guests on. I toyed with the idea of bringing an author on whenever they posted their 001 proposal, and I definitely want to do that, and I kind of regret not taking the opportunity at the time. I was very gun-shy. I was very cautious about trying that on the show, and I don't really know why. I mean, what am I expecting here? What's the worst that's going to happen if I bring somebody on and we talk for a half hour, 45 minutes, an hour, whatever, about their work? Like, even if, the audio quality or whatever was so bad that I didn't end up running it, what's the worst case? I have a better understanding of the work and I can talk, more accurately to the piece. Yeah, that sounds awful. So that's something that we're going to start exploring. And I tossed around ideas last year, and the hesitation really came in when I thought about it as a workload in addition to the recaps. And I think, when a particular format is actively getting in the way of innovation, you've really got to examine the relative value of it. I know it was, useful for people. It was a good chance for underrated, underviewed works to get a signal boost, but I think that can happen anyway if it's of sufficient quality. The odds might be slightly lower in that there might be other things going on, but I think that can also be remedied if what I'm working on that week isn't something where I'm gonna, go digging through all the recent works. I might just keep like a running tally of, oh, these are ones, that I found interesting that I haven't talked about since the last time I, made occasion to talk about a bunch of works. So it may just be as simple as that, find a way to make that fit in sort of a new format to just sort of go over what's been posted recently. There's a lot of ways you can do a show like this, and I feel like I kind of let you all down by sticking so rigidly to a single format, and by the end of it not actually even enjoying it myself. So I would always feel like these weren't coming out to, my satisfaction. It was rare towards like the last 10, 15 weeks, honestly, that I was like super, super happy with how one came out. So we're not going to do that anymore. We're not going to stick with a way of doing things just because it's the way I was doing it last week, last month. Fuck that. There's so many ways we can do this show and have it be fun for everybody involved. So I hope this is intriguing to you. I still have a lot of thinking do. You know, I've been doing a lot already, but there's a lot more to go. Bear with me. You know, it's been there's been some up and down personally, and I don't know. I think this was the year I really figured out how strongly affected I am by like crappy gray weather, like that whole seasonally affected depression thing. I think that's legit. I think that's a real thing, and I think I was really feeling it over the last couple of months. I was not myself, and as time goes on, you know, I've been kind of dealing with depression in some form or fashion for about half my life at this point. But once you are kind of aware of what it is and what it feels like, and I feel like that in itself is half the battle of knowing that, oh, this isn't necessarily like me intrinsically, it's not me. It is something that can be attributed to some other factors, and from there it can be mitigated in some fashion. I don't know how we got here. How'd we get over here? But seriously, your guys' support has been really moving. I got a lot of really nice messages from people, and you know, I'm gonna try and take all of those things into consideration and take the personal messages to heart, and try at the same time to come up with something that is closer to what I actually wanted this thing to be from the beginning. So bear with me. Please let me know what you think. I want to know people's thoughts on everything on the show, on what could be a good idea. I've never professed to be the man with all the answers in this regard. I'm just the one that, you know, is cocky enough to buy a microphone and record it and put it out there for people. So I want to know what you guys think, and keep an eye on SCP.Cafe. I'm going to try, I don't know, I'm not sure if I'm going to do this on a regular basis. I might try including some blog posts to the cafe website, because I think I can do that and not trigger the podcast notifications to go out. So if you're subscribed on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, I think I can do this and not ping that feed. One way to find out. So apologies in advance if I get this wrong. But next time around, I'm gonna have a lot to talk about with regards to 5K. My little lead-in this time around is from Tanhoney's 5K proposal, and everybody else is in a distant fight for second place. So I want to be the first to congratulate them, because it was a real pleasure seeing them come back to the wiki and just come out guns blazing, and just write and show people that there is so much ground still to be tread in this format. So congratulations, our SCP-5000 winner. I'm calling it. There's not enough, there aren't enough active voters left to have this be anything but. So, Tanhoney, SCP-5000Y. Congrats, bud. I'll see the rest of you soon. We'll talk 5K. I'll have updates for you on a whole plethora of things. Until then, keep reading, keep writing, and I'll see you on the other side.